The first one is the Aggro Freeze Mage. This deck is so much fun to play considering it runs Mad Bomber and can destroy your opponent so easily. I don't think you will find this deck anywhere else, by the way. So this deck is more about getting aggressive at the beginning of the game and switching to control near the end of the game. Early on, you want to put as much damage as you can with your minions such as Leponome, Mana Worm, Apprentice, Loot Order, and Mad Bomber. Now, you might be wondering why is there a Mad Bomber in this deck, and for good reasons. Cause yeah, it might be just a troll card, but when you're facing an aggro deck, like a Face Hunter for example, you might be the one on the back foot at the beginning, and that's exactly why Mad Bomber is so good, because it allows you to clean a minion early on and put a 3-2 body on turn 2. Now sure, it's not gonna work every time, but it's an extra tool to get there, and when it does, you'll be so far ahead in the game. As I said, your goal is to push the maximum damage at the beginning, but it's crucial to draw a lot to make this deck work. For that you have Loot Order, Talnos, Acolyte, which works so well with the Mad Bomber by the way, and Arcane Intellect. But why is it so important to draw? Well, remember when I said this is a control deck near the end of the game? That's why, because when you did enough damage with your minions, you can switch from being aggressive and act more like a freeze mage. And you have the toolkit of one. I'm talking about Frost Nova, Cone of Cold, Blizzard, also Ice Lance if you need to freeze a minion, and finally the best one, Ice Block. The point is to control everything to get enough time to win the game with all the spells you have, like Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Arcane Missiles, Fireball, and Pyroblast. On the other hand, if you are on the back foot at the beginning and can't deal damage with your minions, it's gonna be very hard to come back. But overall, this deck is so much fun to play, and I don't think your opponent will be prepared to face it whatsoever. Hi, my name is Angel, and just before we go through the next deck, I just want to let you know that I'm on stream Monday, Tuesday and Thursday at 2 PM European time. So if you want to see this deck in action, feel free to join and I would love to see you there. Anyway, let's jump into the second deck, the Zoo Warlock. I'm sure you already know this one, but it's such a powerful deck that I need to include it in my list. So for this one, the only thing you need to be concerned about is your board state. Keeping minions at all time on the board is your #1 priority. As you can see, this deck is not running any spells at all, it's all about minions. Other than that, the important stuff about this deck is that the Knife Juggler is a 3/2 for 2 mana and can push a lot of damage early on. And that Doomguard is back, which is a 5/7 on turn 5 that can go face immediately, so it's nice to see him back. But besides that, there's not that much to say about this deck, except that it's very powerful and extremely aggressive. Moving on to the next aggro deck, the Face Hunter. This deck was one of the best ones back then. Sure, it also focuses on pushing as much damage as you can, but it's a lot more nuanced than the Zoo Warlock. On one side, you have a lot of cards to put pressure early on, like Leponome, Abusive Sergeant, Eaglehorn Bow, Arcane Golem, and Wolf Rider. But on the other side, you also have good ways to deal with annoying board with your Hunter's Mark, Explosive Trap, and Unleash the Hounds. Don't forget that the bizarre Unleash the Hounds combo is very powerful as well, because if you're running out of stuff and are not close to winning the game, then it can allow you to keep going. But keep in mind that games with this deck are not very long, so you want to close them out as soon as possible, meaning you're not the one trading minions usually. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward again. But if you're more into mid-range decks, then the next two are gonna be for you. First, let's talk about the Druid Ramp. For this one, it's very similar to what we know in Standard. The goal is to increase your mana pool and put big minions every single turn on the board. To do that, Wild Growth is back to 2 mana, which is insane by the way, and Innovate also gives you 2 mana. So let's say you have the coin in hand. You can use it plus Innovate into Yeti to put a 4/5 on turn 1 on the board. It's probably the best turn 1 you could ever do. But it's not only the Yeti, I mean all of your deck is based on value minions like Harvest Golem, Azure Drake, Druid of the Claw, Sylvanast, Argent Commander, and Ragnaros. Just based on stat on the board, your opponent will be overwhelmed. And if for some reason you find yourself on the back foot during the game, you can use Enchant of Lore to draw 2 cards or heal for 5. Finally, to kill your opponent on turn 9, you have the Force of Nature Savage Roar combo to deal 14 damage with no minions on the board. And if you do have a minion on board, then it's pretty much over at this point. That's it for the Druid. Let's move on to probably the best deck in Classic, the Miracle Rogue. That's the exact deck that Joe used to be the first Legend player in March. And based on his suggestion, I changed 1 Blade Fury for 1 Shiv. So first of all, the Rogue has an incredible ability to control early board versus aggressive decks. I mean, this deck has Backstab, Shiv, Fan of Knives, SI7, Eviscerate, Sap, Deadly Poison, and you can even combine it to Blade Flurry if you need to clear the board. And with all of these removals, you can develop your own board with Violet Teacher, Farseer, your SI7 like I said, or even put a huge Van Cleef early on. While all of this allows you to control the early game and put some pressure, your goal is to cycle through your deck as fast as possible. And for that, you have Azure Drake, Talnos, Fan of Knives, and the most important card, the Auctioneer on turn 5. You can even conceal it for 1 mana and have the entire next turn to draw a bunch of cards. Here is why you need to draw so much. First, to get more oceans every single turn of course, but mostly to use Leroy, Double Cold Blood and Shadow Step to kill your opponent. Besides being an extremely good player, that's the reason why Dedro managed to get a 71% win rate with this deck. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and find it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know in the comment if you try the Aggro Freeze Mage, I would love to know, and feel free to share the deck that you're playing right now in the ladder. By the way, all the deck code will be in the description down below, and if you have any question or just want to jump into the stream, I'm live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday at 2 PM European time, so feel free to join. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more content on the new expansion, and until next time, have a good one. Free Beast, wow! What? What is happening?